Nick, you know what's worse?
What?
Is when you don't notice you're not recording sound. But this time we did. That's why you can hear us. It's Best of Board Game Geek. What's up, everybody? I'm Mike.
I'm Nick.
We are the Brothers Murph. It's time once again to talk about everything geek.
Indeed.
Specifically, Board Game Geek.
There's lots of geeky things.
There's true, but we're going to talk about the hottest games that came out this last month, or not came out this month, but the things that people are talking about this month. We're going to talk about the most played games, a bit of Board Game Geek news, which I think is where we should begin.
Yeah, let's get into the news.
First bit of Board Game Geek news is that BGG Spring is back. It's going to be better than ever, and you can register now for tickets and for hotels for BGG Spring at the Hyatt. So we were at BGG in the fall. BGG Spring is something we haven't got to do yet, but I think you should make sure you get to it so you can register right now if that's something you want to participate in. It's going to be May 27th through the 30th. It's going to be an awesome weekend of gaming. It's going to be super duper fun. Make sure you check it out. Go ahead and register. You can go right to Board Game Geek at the top of the page. Right there in the header is going to be places to register for BGG Spring. Do not miss it.
The next bit of BGG news is just for the BGG store. There's a nice update. There's a whole bunch of stuff basically coming back into stock, which is super, super awesome. A lot of times really cool stuff comes on the BGG store and it sells out, so they have to bring it back. So there's a whole new wave of Geek Up bits coming through in May 2022. That's really, really cool. Super excited about that. There's some new pre-orders like Three Sisters and Capers, two games that we are very, very interested in. Very, very excited. There's the Unmatched Deadpool set is back in stock, and that's a very hard set to get, so we're super excited about that. There are these really cool D20 earrings that are in stock, and one thing that's coming out that I'm really, really excited for is our puzzles of your favorite board game covers, like Feast for Odin, other games like that, and I'm like, oh, that's a really cool idea. I love taking art that we enjoy and then making a puzzle out of it. I think it's awesome. We do a lot of puzzles here at Mike's place, and we just really enjoy doing puzzles, so I'm like, ooh, we might have to pick up some board game puzzles. I think it's a really, really cool idea that I'm really excited to see what they have come out with. The Artist Series, the pre-orders for that is almost closed, so get those pre-orders in if you haven't already. Really, really cool ones in the Artist Series, and it's just so much cool stuff in the Geek Store. All of it's coming back. It's really, really awesome, and check it out. So that is the Board Game Geek news, but let's go ahead and get into those hot games of the month. So we're gonna go down to the table and talk about the hotness. It's time for the hotness. This is the hottest games of the month. They've been on the hotness of BGG, popping up all over the place.
It's what everyone is talking about there in the world, especially on Board Game Geek.
Mostly on Board Game Geek,
So let's get to the hotness with number 10.
Number 10, did it pop on like a BGA? Because I'll tell you right now, it's one of the most played games of the month, too.
It's Spirit Island. I don't know. I mean, it might have. Maybe the app finally went where you could play co-op and not just solo. If you know the answer to that, we'd be appreciative. Yeah. Spirit Island is always near the top 10 of the hotness. It's always like somewhere 12 on the list. But is it number 10? It's actually
it pops up into the top 10 all the time, but it's always kind of hovering
such a
around.
Love game.
But it's been played a lot this month, and obviously been talked about a lot this month. And so Spirit Island, people love Spirit Island.
Classic game where you're trying to kick out the invaders in your island. You are playing essentially
kind of a theme in this
nature.
hotness, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's Spirit Island number 10. Let's go ahead and get number 9. Number 9 is Kingdom Forlorn. They say this is a solo operative game, which I think is just cooperative.
But it's a nice way to brand that.
I know.
It's solo operative.
Solo operative. It's co-op. You can play solo as well. It's on Kickstarter Game Found right now. It's done very, very well as well. But it's kind of like a dark fantasy dungeon crawler kind of game.
Yeah, kind of they said going like into Dark Souls or Diablo vibes and stuff. We're focusing on getting loot, I think kind of upgrading a character.
Yeah, tons of loot, like modular boards. It's a dungeon delver, right? So, but it's cool. Like these, I mean, people love dungeon crawls. It's like one of the things, they've never been really our favorite kind of game, but I do always have a spot in my heart for dungeon crawls.
I totally understand why they're so popular. It's fun to get stuff and upgrade and really feel like you went on a journey.
Yeah.
Kingdoms Forlorn is crushing it.
Doing really well.
On its crowdfunding campaign, it's doing very well. So congrats to them. That's number 9, Kingdoms Forlorn.
Let's get to number 8.
So number 8 is Tindaya.
This is going kind of a
Spirit Island. It
not
might
in
be
terms of the way it
playing
plays.
into people playing Spirit Island. This is a game where you are controlling a tribe of aboriginals, and you're kind of dealing with appeasing the gods and stuff. And if you don't appease the gods and give them what they request and stuff, there's natural disasters that might befall you. It's also set in the time that the conquistadors were discovering the Canary Islands and deciding they were interested in. So you're also trying to combat against invaders from afar. In this game, and so it seems like it's going to be really interesting. You can play it cooperative, you can play it competitive, you can play it with a trader variant. So there's lots of different
solo,
ways.
lots of different stuff. And I just like that. I think it's a really interesting theme. It's very like environmentally conscious, the theme and stuff like that, and talking about that. And I really enjoy like Spirit Island's kind of theme where it's the kind of the other side of the coin where you're like you are the island or the people on the island.
Maybe
usually in games you see you're usually the one invading the islands. I like the other side of the coin as well, where it's just like no, you're trying to like no, we live here.
Yeah,
you know,
like, no,
I think it's really, really cool. And Tindaya, it's got a really pretty cover and stuff like that. And so I'm interested in this one. It seems interesting.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a game that seems like a very cool theme and one that people are clearly interested in.
Yes.
It's on the hotness. Let's go ahead and get to the next one.
Number 7 is Ostia, which at first I thought was like Kyle Farron because of the
font.
It looks like Oath, the kind of font they're using.
Title, yeah.
But this is a game where you're running a fleet, and it's actually got like a Mancala system. And I tell you, I think Mancala is like a Mancala type system is one of the most underutilized mechanics in all of board games.
I know
it's like 5 tribes, a couple other things, but it's like why isn't Mancala used more often?
I know, because it's like you see so many board games that are kind of based on puzzles of certain types, and like a Mancala is a way to work a puzzle where you have to get certain resources around to certain areas, you know, in trades, and you're trying to land resources in the right spot to take a certain action. I think it always makes for an interesting play. So Ostia does that, but you're using it to kind of explore the ocean, develop trade, and build up a port and all of that, which I'm like, well, that's a cool theme. And I'm just purely intrigued for the Mancala.
I'm here for the Mancala, honestly. I see Mancala and I'm like, new Mancala game? I'm very interested in that. So Ostia seems interesting. I don't really know much, we don't know too much else about it. But Mancala game, it's cool. It's got a cool cover. I'm like, all right, cool. I'm here for it.
That's number 7, Ostia. You'll never guess number 6, Nick. Lost Ruins of Arnak is here still.
What? First time on the list.
People love this game, and I don't blame them.
Well, the expansion's been in people's hands now for a little bit, so it's on BGA. It's been played non-stop on BGA. I mean, it's great. We love it. We talk about it literally every single month. we talk about it and another game that's going to come up.
Absolutely. So this is a game for anyone that doesn't know Lost Ruins of Arnak is you are archaeologists. You are discovering artifacts. Digging up ancient sites and stuff, and you're using resources and stuff to ultimately kind of move up this research track. You're trying to study the area, and it presents itself in a cool way where the board kind of grows as you explore more and more.
Yeah, the action spaces,
feels nicely, you know, the mechanics seem to blend nicely with the theming, and it's just intrigued people for some time. That's Lost Ruins of Arnak, number 6.
Number 5 is Tiny Epic Dungeons. This, I believe, is starting to hit backers' hands.
Yeah,
this is all the Tiny Epic games are always kickstarted, and so this is in people's hands now. People are talking about, people are playing it, and so we down in the comments below, we want to know. We were talking about this on stream the other day because we were talking about Tiny Epic Dungeons hitting people's hands. And so we were like, what theme do you want to see Tiny Epic? So we were kind of this big discussion on stream, and I want Tiny Epic roller coasters. Not like theme park. I want little tiny roller coasters.
Like you want to physically build tiny roller coasters.
Because I love the idea of building a theme park, but I think you could. I think it would. I don't know how deep of a game you can get into it with like just building a roller coaster. But I think it'd be a really cool, fun, light game. So I would like to see Tiny Epic roller coasters. You're building little roller coasters, and especially if I can have them go through, it'd be very great.
I want to see Tiny Epic House, where you're building a tiny home inside the box, and that's the amount of space you have. It's like a container home or something. You have to do a Tiny Epic home, and you have to lay out stuff, and basically, you know, maybe polyominoes or something, where you only have a limited amount of space, and you have to make the best use of your space based off of the buyer's wants. Like you're developing the home.
Tiny homes are intriguing.
I could get into the idea of one for sure.
Totally, you know. But nonetheless, that's Tiny Epic Dungeons. We were talking about, so we're like, you know, let's bring this up during the hotness because I want to know what games, Tiny Epic, what? Let us know. Tiny Epic Dungeons hit people's hands. People seem to be enjoying it, and that's why it's number 5. Yep. Let's get number 4. What's number 4, Mike?
Nick, it's Dune Imperium. You know it's on the list.
First time on the list.
It's always here. People love Dune Imperium. It's a very popular game. It's absolutely climbed up the overall rankings on BoardGameGeek.
I think it's in the top 20 already.
Dune Imperium's doing great. It's got the House of Ix, I think, expansion for it now. So there's even more Dune to enjoy. And it's another, you know, blending worker placement, deck building with the cool kind of dual use cards, depending on if you use it to do the main action or if you kind of hold it back for your reveal phase. There's a lot of interesting things, and Dune's a cool world to explore.
Of course. I love the world.
It's an intriguing.
I'm not a huge fan of the game, but I love the Dune world.
And so it's on this list. Spice. is spicy. It's number 4, Dune Imperium. Let's get to number 3.
Number 3 has got one of the most unique themes ever, and this is
very interested.
Voices in my head. This game is weird.
Yeah.
I'm so intrigued by it.
The theming is interesting. So this is a game where there's a person named Guy who's on trial for committing a crime, and one player is going to play the prosecutor who's trying to like convict this person.
Yes.
Then everyone else is not
the
playing.
personalities.
They're not playing Guy. They're playing voices in Guy's head, and they're trying to like kind of pull and sway what Guy is doing, ultimately with the goal of
Winning,
making sure that they stay out of jail.
Yeah,
but you might play cards where you're the selfish side of Guy, or the more hopeful side, or sarcastic, or mean, or whatever. And you're literally different voices in this person's head. So it's kind of like Inside Out come alive in a board game, but you're coming from a certain perspective, and you want to sort of work Guy like a puppet or something, according to like the way that you want to be. It's just a super like. I just want to play this and just see like how it comes together, because I've just never seen a game that is like this.
It's an interesting theme,
the art style is really interesting and stuff, and it brings people in, but voices in my head is,
who knows?
Personally, like if you were talking about us, I'm like, yeah, it's way up there from like, what is this game?
Out of sheer curiosity. Voice in my head, number 3, I want to try it. I'm curious of what it is, you know? So that's number 3, let's get to number 2.
So number 2 is a game called Earth, with a very beautiful photo as a cover that I think has really lured people in. It certainly got me.
People in, yeah.
This is a game where you are
seems cool, yeah.
kind of creating ecosystems.
Yeah, you're kind of engine building it,
Yeah, you're building out a tableau of cards. That's something that we're always personally intrigued by, our tableau builders. You're building out like kind of a 4x4 grid of cards. And I think with that, you're trying to get things that are synergistic with each other, creating growth. There's actions that you can take, and then other people will follow a lesser version of that action. Something that we're also personally love.
Yeah, any kind of I take an action, you follow.
It's something that's really interesting, and it's all about kind of getting water into your system, growing stuff, composting, creating a rich, thriving ecosystem, which is just, it's a theme I don't think I'll ever get tired of, because I think the Earth is infinitely fascinating. So I'm loving seeing more and more games that are kind of delving into that and seeing how ecosystems function.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. Yeah, I love the big influx in the last couple of years of like nature themes just in general, and I think it's great. This one, again, the cover's gorgeous. It's a beautiful picture, and I'm just like, cool. I like this. Like, you're building an ecosystem. You're trying to make it work. You're trying to make. I think it's a good thing that we all should be focusing on in the real world too. You know, all this kind of stuff. And so I just think there's so many of these kind of nature games out there. I just think it's cool. I think it's a really cool, like, hey, sustainability and like cool ecosystems, and just nature is something. It's nature. Everyone likes nature. No one's like screw trees, you know? And so it's just like, so I don't know. I really like these kinds of games, and this one just looks really cool and it's pretty. So yeah, Earth number 2, I'm into it.
Boom. That's Earth number 2. Let's get into number 1.
Number 1's been on the hotness for a second now. I think it was number 1 last month, and it's number 1 this month. That's Ark Nova. Talk about like kind of building, you know, sustainable things, and then also like, because what's conservation points? I thought that's
conservation
like the points, right?
and appeal. So you want to have your zoo. This is a game where you're running a zoo.
I haven't played it. Mike's played it before.
It's fantastic. It deserves all the hype in the world. This is a game where you're going to be putting animals into your zoo, which is very appealing. People are like, look at that lizard. That's appealing to me.
Like that lizard.
You can get appeal, but then you also want to focus on conservation efforts. This is something that we personally really love about zoos now, is that zoos are all built with strong conservation in mind.
Good ones are,
oftentimes trying to rehab animals, reintroduce animals to wild, grow populations and things. Then this game will give you your kind of biggest hits of points if you can manage to participate in conservation efforts. And you're ultimately trying to get that appeal track and your conservation track to cross. But you're playing out great animal cards and stuff that will give you different benefits. There's kind of tags that you have to, certain cards have prereqs and stuff, so there's that kind of Terraforming Mars connection where you're like, well, you need to have a certain amount of tags to play this game, or this card rather, and in Ark Nova, you certainly have some of those abilities. There's just a lot of fun stuff. The action selection system is something I personally think is really fascinating, where kind of the longer you wait to use an action, the stronger it becomes.
That is a very interesting
thing. You get a better version of that action. It's really neat. So you're kind of cycling actions. There's a lot to love. Ark Nova, I think, has captured people's minds because the theming is really great. It's backed by very strong mechanisms. I think it deserves all the hype in the world.
Yeah, I think it's going to be around.
It's my number 1 hotness right now.
Yeah, it's
whatever that's worth.
So that's the number 1 hotness. Let's go and talk about the most played games of the month. So this is logged plays on BGG. So people who have played a game and then logged it. I played this game on BGG. And yeah, and it's always interesting, this list, because sometimes things will pop up on there because they got put on something like BGA, and so it's always really, really cool. But let's go ahead and start with number 10, and that is actually Spirit Island. That's what we were talking about earlier. And that's a big, long game, but it was played 3,306 times as of right now, which is pretty cool, with 1,164 unique users. So it's like a lot of people are playing it multiple times, you know?
Absolutely. We have Seven Wonders Duel is an often one that pops up on the list with 4,059 plays.
Yeah, which
Seven Wonders Duel.
That one's a quick one, which is too.
Yep.
Lost Ruins of Arnak is always on this list with 4,380 plays, which is, again, people love it. It's on BGA, so people are playing all the time.
Absolutely. Terraforming Mars, one that you can always see getting played. It's always going to get played. We've got 428 on that, 4,428, lots of Terraforming Mars.
Indeed, and we have Seven Wonders Architects next with 4,518. Again, that's a really quick game, and I really like Seven Wonders Architects a lot.
Me too, I really want to play it some more. That's also on Board Game Arena now. We got the Crew Mission Deep Sea, just beneath the Crew still, but it's on 4,752 plays.
And the Crew, the normal one, is 5,642. So they're right.
I think
back
everyone's
to
trying to rush to complete all the missions in the first Crew before they play the second one. And then it's going to flip. That's what's happening.
But I mean, they're both going to be here for a minute, yeah.
Absolutely. Wingspan, of course, is off on the list at number 3. It's got 5,973 plays.
And then Azul somewhat recently hit BGA, so it's getting played a ton. That's 6,116 plays.
Absolutely. The Marvel Champions, always a contender. There's always new content for that game. People play it over and over and over again. That's got 7,443 plays this month, making the #1 most played game that people have logged.
And that is one out of 1,373 users. So that means those
average people are playing 7 games in a month.
A lot. Yeah, like they're playing it back to back to back. It's what a huge ratio between the amount of users and the amount of plays. It's pretty nuts. But that is the most played games of the month on BGG. If you want to change this list, log your plays on BGG because they'll be logged into here. But that's going to be it for the hotness and the most played games. Let's go back up and talk about some Murph picks. My Murph pick for this month is the Golden Turtleback Painted Miniature Contest of January 2022. I really like this because one part that's not super prevalent on BGG is painted miniatures. I like to paint miniatures, and a lot of games have miniatures, and there's definitely painted miniatures on BGG. If you go to any images of any kind of miniatures game, there's always people putting up their painted miniatures, but I never saw any kind of like competition like this, little friendly competition. So when I saw this geek list, I was like, oh, this is super cool, because I think this is something that's really great, and it just goes to show that everything is on BGG. Anything you can think of with BoardGameGeek, anything you can think of with board games, rather, is somewhere on BoardGameGeek. There's a painted miniature contest that I think I might enter someday because I think it's really cool. A lot of the entries are really great, and basically anyone can enter. You choose one game that you've painted miniatures for, and you submit a photo of that mini, and it's basically like, here's the one I did. How cool is that? I think it's really great to see these kind of friendly competitions where it's not like who did the best and who was the most supreme painter of all time. It's just like, hey, we all painted minis. Isn't that cool? I think it's really cool, and it goes to show that everything's on BGG if you look hard enough. And this right here, painting competition, that's awesome.
So my Murph pick is something that Caroline Black made, and it's a great question that I often ask myself. They made a blog post on BoardGameGeek asking, how do you find out about board games, about new games to try out, whether they're new to you, the new game that just got announced, or what have you? And they went through and listed off different ways that they have found games in the past, and sort of was asking the open-ended questions. So there's things like geek lists and stuff that I think are really great, and blog posts that people make on BoardGameGeek talking about their experiences with a certain game or something they heard. Eric Martin does a great job of keeping us abreast of announcements and things like that right here on BoardGameGeek. There's also things like top 10 lists from content creators you appreciate. There's something your friends like and they've heard about. I like to listen to Matthew Jude, for example. Anything he talks about is a game that's interesting. It's probably a game I like, so I want to know what his thoughts are on games to get an idea of what I would like. So I want to know for you, what are your methods for keeping up with the games that are coming out? Do you scan social media? Do you just go to various pages on BoardGameGeek? Do you watch top 10s? What is your best way to find out about games that you think you'd be interested in trying? Going to game conventions, I think, is a great place to kind of wander around and just sort of see stuff. That for me is useful. I'm like, oh, I've never seen that before. That looks really kind of great on the table. I want to know your ways. That's something that I think this blog post was just really fantastic, a really in-depth look at all these different ways that they have found to find board games and stuff. I love seeing that kind of analysis. It just, as always, got me thinking about how do you find games? Because I still will find times where I'm like, I haven't heard about this game, and I'm like sort of in the industry. How did I miss this, you know? It's definitely possible to do. So how do you make sure you don't miss out on games? Let me know in the comments below.
So those are our Murph picks. The very last thing we do before the very last outros, we talk about our favorite game of the month, the favorite thing that we played, our, I guess, hotness. What was your hotness this month?
My hotness this month was something that I watched on game night.
Yeah.
And I bought
Shouts
it
out to
immediately.
Aldi's one talking about
Aldi was talking about
yeah.
it. We've talked about it before. It's Witchstone.
Yeah.
Witchstone is amazing.
Right off the list.
It's so good. The combos you can kind of build in that game. It's just another classic Reiner Knizia. Probably my favorite Reiner Knizia at this point.
I think after a couple plays,
fun.
I'm already like, yeah, I think it's my favorite Knizia.
The way you can build up those strong actions with the cauldron placement. Watch the game night episode if you haven't. It got me hooked, and I did not regret that purchase.
Yeah, my favorite game was a game that we, another game we kind of checked off the list of games of 2020 we were trying to play, and that is Boone Lake. Boone Lake, it's an Alexander Pfister game that we were trying so hard to play at BGG Con, and just couldn't get it played. And this is one of those games where we're like, man, we've looked into it, and everything about this seems right up our alley.
Ticks a lot of the boxes.
Man, oh man, was it. It's just right up our alley. It's our favorite kind of Euro game, and my gosh, it's so good. Like, I can't stop thinking about it. I thought it was so much fun. Boone Lake is really outstanding. It's now starting to hit that Arc Nova 2 from Capstone that kind of had a hard time getting here, but now they're starting to get here, and I'm really excited. I want to play it again so bad.
Yeah, so that's our picks. Let us know in the comments, though, what are your picks? New games, old games? What's the favorite thing you played this last month? Hit us with those picks and recommendations. We're always trying to find out about new games anyway.
Of course.
What's the hottest game in your mind that you are looking forward to coming out next? Get all that into the comments so we can check them out.
Yeah, and that's going to be it. Until next time, I'm Nick.
I'm Mike.
We're the Brothers Murph, and that is the best of BGG.
See you later.